Hey, 6th grade. Today we're going to talk about Unit 1, Lesson 2, which is Understanding Unit Rate. So we're going to take our knowledge of ratios and we're going to talk about rates. So, how are ratios, rates, and unit rates related? Well, ratios, rates, and unit rates are all comparisons. They are comparing one quantity to another quantity. So yesterday we talked about how a ratio compares any two quantities. So it says Yolanda uses 4 cups of nuts and 2 cups of dried fruit to make trail mix. She can use a tape diagram to show this comparison. So you can see your 4 squares for the nuts, 4 cups of nuts, and you can see the 2 squares for the 2 cups of dried fruit. So the ratio is 4 cups to 2 cups, or 4 to 2. Notice that the quantity of nuts is double the quantity of the dried fruit. This shows that every ratio has a related rate. A related rate is an equivalent ratio that compares the first quantity in a ratio to only one of the second quantity. So related rate, that's one of our vocab terms. In this example, you know that the amount of nuts is double the amount of dried fruit. So what if you wanted the same kind of mix but only used 1 cup of dried fruit? How many cups of nuts would you use? Well, we have 2 cups originally and we only want 1, so we'd be dividing it by 2 to get 1. So we'd have to do the same thing to the nuts. 4 divided by 2 would be 2. So, what number is doubled 1? Well, that would be 2. And the rate is 2 cups of nuts to 1 cup of dried fruit. You can also say the rate is 2 cups of nuts per cup of fruit. So every rate has a related unit rate. The unit rate is part of the rate that is being compared to 1. So once again, that's a vocab term, so we want to make sure that we get that highlighted. And the previous problem, the unit rate of nuts to fruit is 2. Let's look at another example. Margot earned $85 for 10 hours of work. The ratio of dollars to hours would be 85 to 10. Rate of dollars to hour, Marco earned $85 in 10 hours, so he earned $85 divided by 10 hours in 1 hour. He earned $8.50 for each hour, or $8.50 per hour. The unit rate would then be the part of the number of the rate, $8.50 per hour, is $8.50. So Marco earned $8.50 for each hour that he worked. So what is the difference between a ratio and its related rate and unit rate? Okay, so our ratio is our comparison of 2 quantities. Okay, it's just the comparing of the 2 original numbers. Okay, a related rate or a rate is a ratio where the first number is compared to 1. And then the unit rate is just the number that is being compared to 1. Okay, so if we look back up at this problem here, this would be our rate. Then we divide by the bottom number to get our related, this is our ratio, sorry about that, to get our related rate. And then down here we take our top number only, and that's our unit rate. So ratio is the original numbers being compared. Rate is where we divide it by the bottom number to find that compared to 1. And then our unit rate is just our top number. So let's explore this idea a little more. A car can travel 300 miles on 10 gallons of gas. The ratio is 300 miles to 10 gallons. So here you can see we have a double number line that is explaining our comparison of miles to gallons. So on the top you can see that we have 300 miles to 10 gallons. So then we can separate this out to find our rate. You can see that we have taken and divided 310 both by 10. 300 divided by 10 gave us 30, and 10 divided by 10 gave us 1. So then we can go in and fill in our chart. So if we look, we have 10 spaces here, so we're going up by 1 on each one of these. Okay, so then up at the top, if I know that for every gallon I'm going 30 miles, that means I'm going to be going up by 30 each time. So if I go up 30, it would give me 60, then 90, then 120, 150, 180, 210, 240, and 270, and then our 300. So then I filled in my double number line. So number 2 says, what do the 300 and the 10 in the diagram represent? Well, the 300 represents 300 miles, and the 10 represents the 10 gallons of gas. Okay, and then that is our ratio. It's our just basic comparison. Number 3 says, how many gallons does each section along the bottom number line represent? Well, each one represents 1 gallon. And we've already filled this in, but we need to make sure that it's done. Number 4, look at the corresponding pairs of numbers on the bottom and top number lines. Write a multiplication sentence to show how 10 gallons and 300 miles are related. How are 5 gallons and 150 miles related? How are 1 gallon and 30 miles related? Well, if we have 10 gallons, we're multiplying it by 30 to get our 300. Okay? Our 5 gallons, we'd multiply also by 30 to get 150. And then our 1 gallon, we're multiplying by 30 to get 30. Okay, because we've already talked about it's going up by 30, so each gallon you're going to multiply it by 30. Number 5, use words to describe the relationship between the number of miles and each corresponding number of gallons. So, the number of miles is 30 times the number of gallons. Number 6, fill in the remaining numbers on the number line, which we've already done. What is the rate of miles per gallon for this car? So the rate would be 30 miles for each gallon. And then number 7, what is the unit rate of miles per gallon? It would be 30. So let's solve the problems and work through a little bit more. Number 8 says, look at the model on the previous page. What pattern do you see in the number of miles? Well, we talked about this earlier. They're going up by 30, so they are all multiples of 30. What pattern do you see in the number of gallons? Each one is 1 more than the last. Or they're going up by ones. Number 9. Now look at all the corresponding numbers of miles and gallons. Describe the pattern. So we could say each number of miles is 30 times the number of gallons. So for each gallon, we're going 30 times on the miles. 10, write the ratio given in the problem. Okay, so our original ratio was 30 miles to 10 gallons. Okay, now we're going to divide both quantities in the ratio by the second quantity. And then we're going to write a new ratio. So we're going to take 30, and we're going to write it as a fraction this time, over 10. And we're going to divide both numbers by that bottom number. So 30 divided by 10, this should be 300 miles and 300 here. Sorry about that. So now we have 300 divided by 10, which is 30, and 10 divided by 10 is 1. So we are writing the new ratio, which would be 30 miles to 1 gallon. And then it says, what is this ratio called, and explain. Well, I'm comparing it to 1, so this is our related rate. Because it's comparing a quantity to 1. Number 11, look at your answer to problem 10. How can you find the related rate for a ratio? Well, to find the related rate for a ratio, we have to divide both quantities by the second number. So in this case, we did 300 over 10 divided by 10. We're dividing by that bottom number. Okay, so now I want you guys to pause the video, take a couple moments, and work out 12 and 13. After you've tried them and tried to work them out, then you can resume the video and check your answers. All right, number 12 says, a 10-pound box of apples costs $12.50. Write the ratio of cost to number of pounds as a fraction. Well, the cost would be $12.50, and then the number of pounds would be 10. Okay, then it says to find an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 1. So this is where we are finding our rate. So, just like on the previous page, we divide by the bottom number. Okay, when we divide by 10, we're basically just moving the decimal. So, when we do that, we get 125 for our top, and 10 divided by 10 is 1. So, this would be our rate, our related rate. And then to find our unit rate, it's just the number that's being compared to 1. So, our unit rate for the cost of the apples is going to be $1.25. Number 13, a driver traveled 260 miles on the highway for 4 hours, driving at the same speed for the whole trip. Write the ratio of miles to hours. So we had 260 miles in 4 hours. That's our ratio. It says, then use what you know about the equivalent fractions to write a related rate and a unit rate. So to get our related rate, we have to divide by our bottom number. So we're going to divide both top and bottom by 4. Obviously, 4 divided by 4 is 1, and 260 divided by 4 gives us 65. So this is our related rate, or our rate. And then to find our unit rate, it's just our top number. So our unit rate would be 65 miles. So what I need you guys to do now is go ahead and get on Classroom, get into the quiz, or not quiz, excuse me, exit ticket for today's lesson. Once you've taken the exit ticket, I need you to go ahead and submit it, and then you can work on practice book page 14 in your instruction workbook.